Hello and welcome to episode 1405 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Tuesday, April 22nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good afternoon, sir. How's it going?
It's going all right. It's weird not having any kind of day baseball today, having kind of wait for the evening, but
Well, especially because things were so early yesterday. We had the Patriots Day game, so we were blasting off. You were blasting off at like 6 a.m. over there. Obviously, I know that's not that early, but it was like 8, right? It really is literally 8.
8 a.m., like 10 a.m. I think was the first pitch. And so like I was literally like eating breakfast and watching baseball, which I love. Like I know a lot of people don't like it, but
no, I do too. The only thing I don't like is for the outlets where it locks every game, where it locks everybody once the first game starts, which is more a deficiency of the outlet than it is anything else. But of course, I like baseball being on that early. That's fun. And Walker Buehler stood up to it. You know, he's had. I hate to be such a hater. I'm still not really convinced, though.
No, I watched that game and like I was like. There were definitely moments where I was like, oh, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. Here it goes. And it was the White Sox.
And it's the team. Yeah, exactly. The matchup could not punish him, which is why he was an easy start. So even with my skepticism and lack of trust from the two good starts that he had before that, I still gave Walker Buehler a full recommendation. But believe me, it was entirely due to the White Sox. So I'd still say be careful, folks. And, you know, I say this as a big Buehler fan. I want him to be good. But I do not think these 3 starts are indicative of a return. I really don't. The stuff that's coming with them just isn't great. But anyway, we got some fun call-ups to talk about. It is that time of year where call-up season has begun, and we're seeing them left and right. We got 4 interesting ones to talk about. Then we're going to talk some more hitters. With Joe on Thursday, we talked about hitters that were off to fast starts and where we felt about them. We got to go the other way today. We got to look at some guys that are struggling. Now, you and I are on the far end of the patience spectrum there, where we're definitely going to be patient with our guys. Part of that is the deep leagues that we play in for the bulk of our leagues. So it's just not going to make sense to cut like a Marcus Semien at this point, things like that. But we still need to talk about some of those guys. And then there's some of those mid to late rounders that we were excited about that maybe we do have to start looking at, even in some of the deeper leagues, but definitely in the shallower leagues where you can't hold too long. And that can be a deficiency of my game. And that's part of the reason I don't play 10s and 12s, is because I know I'm not as strong in them. So why put myself through them? But anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk positivity first. Let's talk call-ups, baby. In fact, you might be cutting one of those guys to get this guy, Nick Kurtz for the Athletics. Big time draft prospect from just last year, on his way up. Dude just mashes, just a pure hitter of the highest order. The only reason they didn't break camp is probably just the logjam that they had. Now, I will point out quickly that the logjam is not cleared up in any tangible way, which does make this kind of interesting. He just forced his way up, which is exactly what we were saying in the preseason. In spring was, at some point, he's just going to force his way up if he keeps hitting like this. April 22nd, he does exactly that, because Nick Kurtz has not stopped hitting, just absolutely crushing AAA, has 7 bombs, 320 average, just raking. But your boy Soderstrom, who we talked about on that Thursday episode, killing it. Brent Rooker, living up to his continued hype, killing it. That's first in DH. That's where Kurtz would play. Is Miguel Andujar going to have to start looking over his shoulder? Is Nick Kurtz perhaps ticketed for the outfield, or is Mr. Rooker going to get some outfield eligibility? What are we doing here with Kurtz in, I almost said in Oakland, in Sacramento, even though it's just for the Athletics. Don't call them Sacramento. I'm going to make fun of that all year, folks. So if you're tired of those bits, they're not going anywhere because it's so stupid. But anyway, go ahead with Kurtz.
I think what's going to end up happening is Rooker is going to be an outfielder again. So, which is great in leagues. In leagues where you have him as UT only. He already has 3 games in the outfield. He's gonna pick up the other 7 you need in most formats, and Yahoo, I think 2 more fairly quickly, because I think Kurtz is going to be an everyday player. They said today, he's not starting today, that he's not going to platoon. He's not starting today, but they just wanted him to acclimate. So he's going to play every day, and I'm honestly a little shocked by this. The A's are not an organization that tends to rush guys. They tend to want to hold down guys for
I don't think they're rushing
reason.
him. Wait. I actually disagree a little bit. I think that they do push guys when they're ready. And so it is a little bit surprising. I agree with your general premise that there's some surprise here just because there is no perfect fit. But I do think it opens up the rooker to the outfield, like you're saying. But I think that this A's organization, they're open to it, even though they are a cheap organization.
He is just so young, or I mean, not necessarily so young, but so inexperienced.
Right. There you go. That's the word.
He was the 4th overall pick in last year's draft. Like he has not even been a professional baseball player for a full year. So this is
Langford. I mean, we're seeing this more and more with these top end guys. And that's why, like, these days, we're old enough. We've been playing fantasy forever. You could ignore prospects back in the day. Like, they were an advantage maybe if you knew who they were and the ones that were going to come up in the summer, but you could ignore them and be successful. That is no longer the case and has not been the case now for several years in fantasy. If you are not keyed in on the top prospects, regardless of format size, I'm talking even 10-teamers, you're not going to be a successful fantasy player. Doesn't mean you have to draft all of them, but you need to know who's coming up and infusing talent. Number 4 overall pick here. Dude is just, like I said, tearing the cover off the ball, but he has, 20 games, 32 total pro games. Now, so let's talk about the performance. Do you think he's just going to keep hitting? Is he a natural? Is Nick Kurtz somebody who's just so good that he's just going to hit the ground? I know you don't know for sure, but do you think that he's going to come up and just start hitting right away?
I think there's a really good chance that he does. And I think that if you are in need of power, I'm not a big advocate. And I say this every year, and then there's always somebody who makes me do the opposite. But I'm not a big advocate of blowing your fat budget super early. Like, spending $300-$400 on a guy. But if you're in need of power, this is the dude. Like, this is the dude to go for. And I do have some teams where I'm looking, like, especially like my main event team, where I'm going, I need power. Like, my only power source on my main event team is Tyler Soderstrom.
What's your first corner util situation looking like?
If I pick up Kurtz, he'd be replacing Carlos Santana, I believe.
Okay, I got no problems with that. See, right now I'm actually blocked off. I'm actually really deep at first corner and util on all my clubs, to the point where the $300 investment, which we're talking like it's probably going to be a big investment here, especially if he does anything. But even if he doesn't have that big of a week, I think Kurtz is going to draw some big triple-digit bids.
There would be teams that spend $500.
Easily. I mean, Simpson will happen for that, right?
Yeah, it will absolutely happen. And I do think that, like, hey, this is one of the guys that I don't know that any guy's worth $500.
Sure. Well, they're only worth it after the fact, right? You can go back and look and say, well, he earned it or whatever. But you're talking about like the opportunity cost of doing it, what it does for your team, because there are situations where these guys can be quote unquote worth it in terms of the fact that they delivered the value, but they hurt the team so much. Exactly. And that's the concern. That's the concern.
And I've only spent, like, I think north.
Who was it that you did?
Yuri Perez. And it was worth it. It actually was worth it to me because he was fantastic and I really needed the pitching.
Yep.
And so, like, I do think there are scenarios where a guy like this can be worth that kind of bid. You just have to be really smart, kind of rest the way. And I think the hard part is, the people who are more apt to do this kind of move, spend $300-$400 on an individual player, have already been aggressive in FAB.
Exactly.
And probably don't have the kind of money they need to be having in order to kind of make this move. So if you're already down, like I'm just looking at my main event, and in my main event, there is already a team under $300. Like,
what? Are you in Dalton Del Don's league?
No. And this guy is in my main event and both of my auctions. I wonder if he's this low in both.
What of the hell? Oh my God. I say that with shock, not realizing that there's a 295 in my main event. Holy Toledo, man.
There's always people that do this. Like, it's just and so he's in both of my big money auctions, and then he is in my main event. One of my big money auctions is at 399. The other one he's at like 6 something, and then he's under 300, 288 in my main event. So like he's not getting him. Like for sure he's not getting him.
No.
But if you're already at a point where even if you're like under, I'd say if you're under $600 or $700, like you shouldn't be throwing a $300 bid. Like you're gonna need that money if you want to compete.
Yeah, it's April 27th. It's gonna be April 27th
there's
when you're
always
bidding.
the chance that like as much as we have really, really high hopes for Kurtz, we think he could be really good, and I do think he could be really good.
Right.
There's a chance he just busts. He just flat out. I mean, hate
busts
to bring it up
this
for
year.
you. Yeah, this year. Or just busts in general.
I mean, yes. There is the long-term possibility too, but he could bust this year, be amazing next year, and we barely even remember this year. I mean, 4 years down the road.
I hate to bring up Taj Bradley, but you spent $300 on Taj Bradley, and that was like $300 you would have rather literally light on fire. Yeah. So like, I think there's a lot of risk here, but I do think, especially with how the league is kind of deficient in power right now, if you need power, I think this is a guy to make a big push for.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
If Nick Kurtz was going to the Coliseum versus the fact that he's going to Sacramento here with the park, how much is that changing the bid? I guess is my question. It's a theoretical because he's not going to the Coliseum, but
I don't know if it changes it that much. I think what people are excited about. I mean, obviously, it helps that he is going to be in this minor league park that is clearly good for offense, and not even just good for offense, just much better than Oakland was. But it's just, I mean, he has just absolutely destroyed the minor leagues. Like, it's just unreal. I mean, 7 bombs,
142 WRC plus. He's been amazing. So there's gonna be big dollars going in on him. If you and Jason do an episode on Sunday, I'm sure you guys are going to talk about the bids with him. Maybe we'll bring it up with Joe as well, especially if Kurtz does something here on Wednesday. And I don't know when they play on Thursday, if it would be before or after our episode. Go ahead.
He has a 171 WRC plus in the minor leagues between this year and last year.
Jeez.
And his OPS is 1.120.
1.12. That's crazy. I mean, it's 32 games, but like he's hit the ground running, Kurtz has, and he's unbelievable. You know, we see guys that do this, but then still struggle a little bit. So there could be some ups and downs, which does make it difficult to want to go in.
I mean, there are some warning signs, right? Like the zone 27% contact,
K rate. Yeah.
The zone contact is, under 82%. He does have the strikeout rate that, like you said, is 27%, right? Or in AAA. So like, I don't think this is a surefire thing.
Right.
But,
and in fairness, nobody is, because Langford didn't have those sorts of skills. Like he had
the one we always go back to. Trout struggled in his first call up. Like
And the guy that used to be the gold standard for that was A-Rod. He struggled in his first come up, right? So we're talking about top of the class for a reason. We're not saying Kurtz is as good as those. That's the whole point, though. Yeah. You can be one of the greatest players of the generation. Those are 2 generational guys, A-Rod and Trout, and you still might struggle at that first.
Let's also remind people that he's been hitting in the PCL, which is really, really hitter friendly.
Right.
And teams don't like to send some of their best pitching prospects there,
right?
Because it's so hitter friendly at every single location. So I'm not saying he won't be good, and I will say, like, I will probably have, I mean, at least triple digit bids, but I will probably have at least a few leagues where I'm $300 or more.
Where you're pretty competitive,
where I'm really going for it.
I'm excited.
I don't think I'll get him anywhere. Like, I just don't.
You never know. That's the beauty. This is such an underrated factor in these NFBC leagues, in any league, really. But as we live more and more in the NFBC universe, you and I, each year we realize the biggest X factor that you simply cannot plan for, because you just don't know how it's going to be, is the bidding habits of your cohorts. Mm-hmm. And who they're going to go in on, who's going to come cheap in a given week. We talked about Chandler Simpson being the big bid last week with a 571 as his high, a couple in the 400s, and then another 3 in the 300s. And none of the backups were close. 571 to 181, then 461 to 189, 275, 194, 139, 229. Those were the backups to all the $300, $400, $500 bids. And so you just never know. Your, 290, 310 range, wherever you're going to be, might be exactly what you need. And maybe you're $100 higher than anybody else too, because maybe you got some spenders. Who else, how deep now for something like this? How deep is your research to see who might be your competitors? I do some of this later in the season, but I'll freely admit that I do not do it in April and May. Maybe that's when I should, when these big giant triple digit bids are coming up. But are you going to look to see who's in need of power, who's got a first base corner opening with money, etc.? Like how deep do you go in on that at any point in the season?
I think it's just too hard to know, especially earlier on in the season, because you may look and go, well, this guy's been aggressive. Well, now he can't be aggressive, right? The guy in my main who
with
is
no money left,
with $288 left, like he doesn't have the money to be aggressive. I did see someone who spent $156 last week on Logan Henderson.
What?
That's a bummer,
I mean, he'll be back, but that's a tough hold. You have to hold. Like, you spent that money, you have to hold now.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I didn't see this because I just looking at the player movement on NFBC. Someone cut Dylan Cruz in one main. He was cutting one main. Whoa. Pretty efficient bid. He went 457 to 429. So that's kind of crazy that somebody had already cut him. And we're going to talk about him later. But anyway, we got to move on from Kurtz. We're in. We like him. Maybe we'll revisit on Thursday with Joe. But if not, you guys will definitely talk about him on Sunday with Jason. Agustin Ramirez, catcher for the Miami Marlins, is up. He's already played a couple games. He's batted 6th against a righty and then 6th against a lefty and then 4th against a righty, which is interesting because he himself is a right-hander. So I'm surprised that his higher batting slot came against the righty. Bottom line is, though, he's in the middle of the lineup. Agustin Ramirez was a popular draft champions pick for like your 3rd or 4th catcher. Somebody that you didn't have to necessarily rely on at the outset, but who was going to come up early and had some expectations tied to him. He had a colossal season last year, mostly due with the Yankees. Now, what move would that have been to get him there? Do you know?
Jazz Chisholm.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so that makes sense then. They got a big prospect back here. He went 25-22 in 126 games last year at double and triple A. Now, a big bulk of that was at double A as a 22-year-old, but he still held his own at triple A, especially once he got with the Marlins. He had a 117 WRC plus in triple A with them. Came back up, triple A this year, 112 WRC plus with 3 homers and already 5 steals. Is this the next JT Realmuto from back in his Marlins days when he was a big running catcher? What do you think? Oops, sorry about that. What do you think of Agustin Ramirez, catcher for the Marlins?
It's really interesting that he stole so many bases last year because he's not a really fast guy.
It really reminds me of Realmuto.
I mean, a lot of it was at double A. So I do wonder how much of it was like
he just did 5 for 5 at triple A though. He's already got 1 in the majors.
Yeah, no.
Agustin Ramirez says, "I'm fast." Justin, how fast are you?
We have a 30 grade speed score.
Yeah, so. I mean, he's not fast, but and I tell you every time you bring this up,
it doesn't matter, right?
Like you don't need speed. It helps. It helps. It increases your margin for error. It makes life easier. I'm not saying it's not valuable.
And when you're on a bad team, like they may just say, "Yeah, go ahead." Like we
do your thing.
Offense here. So, yeah, Gus Ramirez, I think he's another one of these guys. This is the first Fabapalooza, right? Like we're going to have a number of guys. This, because Caleb Durbin also got called up. We're going to talk about a couple other guys that got called up. Like this is going to be a big weekend for Fab.
Durbin hit a lot of last week's stuff, so there'll be maybe some stragglers or even in the shallower leagues because he was a big 15-teamer this week.
So I'm excited for Agustin Ramirez. He was a guy that I was drafting as my C2 in 30-round leagues on the hopes that he would get called up, and then I dropped, right? So I'm a little bummed that I dropped and I didn't hold, but you just
hard to hold 3 catchers though.
Yeah, and with the amount of injuries there's been this year, it was really, really difficult to hold 3 catchers.
I don't blame you.
I'll be in on him as well. There's power. He does put the speed he has to use, and he does not strike out. I mean, his biggest strikeout rate, if we're not counting this year, was 22% in any stop in the minor leagues over the course of his career.
And most are below 20.
Yeah, and most are in the teens. He also walks at a double-digit rate for the most part. So I think this is a guy that could be, and there's really no one in Miami, right? Like Nick Fortes isn't stopping him from playing. I think the biggest issue for Ramirez is his defense. Is his defense going to be good enough for them to use him behind the plate on a regular basis? Because I think that was the big knock on him as a prospect, that he's not defensively ready. Who cares? It's Miami. Like, put him at DH, put whatever.
Put him anywhere. Let him play.
He's clearly one of the best bats in this lineup already. And I think people should be aggressive on him in 2 catcher leagues or deeper 1 catcher leagues.
Yep, completely agree there with Agustin Ramirez. Going to be an interesting bid this week, especially if he keeps popping off, adds another homer, steals another base or 2. Going to really put himself on the radar for folks and maybe start creeping into those 1 catcher leagues like you mentioned. Jace Young called back up for the Tigers. Call back up from last year. He hasn't been up yet this year. Pardon me on that phrasing, but going to play some third, has started his first 2 games here, batting 6th, playing third base. I don't know. Yeah, my pause there is that, like, I'm not that moved by him. I want him to be good, of course. He's on my favorite team. But the first thing I remember reading about him in prospect profiles was that he can't hit a fastball, and everything I've seen in 35 major league games so far has backed that up, is that he cannot hit heat, which is usually the opposite of what we see with young guys. A lot of times they can come up hitting heat, and then anything with the wrinkle is what really gets to them. When you can't hit heat, it's a bit scary. So I don't think he's quite as good as big bro Josh Young, who I am a fan of. There's some deep league intrigue because it's a guy who's playing every day for a competent team, but I'm not doing backflips for Jace Young. What about you?
No, I don't think Jace Young's a very good hitter. And that's what it comes down to, is I just don't think he can get the ball consistently.
Goes back to that fastball stuff. Yep. Yeah.
I have really zero interest in Young. I think at best he is probably on the strong side of the platoon. And then if and when the Tigers ever get healthy, he probably gets sent back down. I'm honestly even surprised they brought him up, considering he wasn't even hitting well in AAA. He's in 239.
I'll tell you why. It was because with the injuries, with the injuries that they've had. Sorry, I'm going to move this bottle. I keep knocking it over. With the injuries they had, they actually are moving Javier Baez to center field
last night. Yeah,
and he was playing some third. So that's what facilitated that move. It wasn't that Jace Young forced his way up. It was more like, well, we got to turn to somebody. And so Jace Young is a beneficiary there. And look, Baez, for all of his issues at the dish, he strikes me as a natural athlete type who can probably play center, without even having really played it. I won't even be surprised if he's pretty good out there, but we'll see. We'll definitely see how it goes. He pulled up on one yesterday that I was like, oh, that's definitely the lack of experience out there. That now, because that center field is so big in Detroit, if it gets behind you, it's going to go forever, and it's going to be an inside the Parker. So I maybe understand, but it looked like maybe he should have gotten it. But anyway, Jace Young, it's a single digit, it's a low single digit bid, if anything, for me. And if you're just looking to fill in a body, I'm probably not even going to bid on him. Let's talk about Craig Yoho. He was making a little noise in spring for the Brewers. Didn't end up making the club. Now he's up, and this is mostly going to be as a middle reliever, sure. But things are a bit wobbly at the back end of the Brewers bullpen right now. Trevor McGill is walking the yard, has not looked stable throughout his appearances so far this year, and is dealing with a lower half injury. I want to say it's a knee or a leg. Knee. Okay, injury, so he's dealing with a knee injury, and I think it's affecting his control. I think this 15% walk rate, which is double last year, is a direct link to the knee issue right now. Still striking out 30%, still, usually getting the job done more often than not so far, but it's bumpy. And I know Abner Uribe is catching some attention. I actually think Nick Mears could be the next man up. He's the one who's consistently pitching the 8th. And then Craig Yoho himself could be somebody who pushes into the mix too if he hits the ground running here. So where are you at on Craig Yoho and the Brewers closer situation as a whole?
I think as long as McGill is healthy, he's probably the guy. But
he's not healthy right now, though.
I know that's the problem. I don't think he's. We haven't even mentioned the fact that he had arm issues last year. So
right.
This is I picked up Uribe in a lot of leagues, and I'm still kind of holding on to him. I do think Uribe would be kind of the next man up. Mears could, but I also think it could easily just turn into a full-blown committee type situation.
Right.
As far as Yoho goes, like, I know there are like a lot of people. I kept getting questions about him in my chat, like, "Oh, is he the future closer of the Brewers?" I don't think so. At least not.
I mean, I don't
year
either. He could be though. He could break into the mix, but I don't think he's like the guy that they're grooming to be the dude the way they were with Devin Williams when Hader was there.
I think that maybe in the future you could see Yoho be a guy like that, is a closer in Milwaukee, but I don't think it would be in 2025. I watched him during his first appearance because it was against the Giants late in the game. Really struggled with control, but it could just be a matter of, hey, like, it was his first
game jitters,
appearance, a little bit of jitters. The stuff is really good. It has really, really good movement. Even when he wasn't controlling it very well, you could just see that ball kind of fly out of his hands and kind of make batters silly. I think there was one, I can't remember who was up to bat, but like, it was like a foot high and 6 inches outside the zone, and they still swung at it because they had no idea where that ball was going to end up. So, like, I do like the stuff. The stuff is really, really intriguing, but I don't think he's going to be in line for closing games in Milwaukee this year.
I'm not going to rule that out as affirmatively as you are. I ended up getting Uribe in a league myself and then pivoted to Mears this week, who pitched the 5th this past game, but had been pitching in the 8th consistently. Are you moved by the fact that Uribe has never pitched later than the 7th this year in terms of him being the next man up? How come he's not pitching the 8th?
Because the Brewers really do just put the guy in the best situation. Like, they really don't. I don't think they have like, oh, this is our
always in the 6th, 7th.
Yeah. I mean, you could be right. Maybe I do need to move on to someone else, whether it's Mears or Grant Anderson or someone like that.
Greg Yoho, perhaps?
I don't think it'll be Greg Yoho. It's crazy to me that Pyomps is like the first guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
After everybody was thinking he was the guy last year. This is going to be one of those situations, I think, if McGill loses the job at some point because of health, I think this is one of those situations that's going to completely frustrate people. People are going to throw a bunch of fab money at guys and have no idea what they're doing. It's just a dart throw.
I think that could definitely happen. When I was going after Mears, he had pitched in the 8th inning in 3 of his 5 outings. Since then, it's been the 6th and the 5th. So, they got guys all over the place. They are put the guys in when the matchups dictate. Mears' skills are way better than Uribe's. He sacrifices some of the swing and miss that Uribe has for a 5% walk rate, though. Now, this is a newfound walk rate with Mears. We'll see if it sticks. It was at 9% last year, which is palatable, and then it was a bunch of double-digit ones from 2020 through 2023. So we'll see if he's been rounding his control into shape here for Nick Mears. If so, I think he could really be the guy if McGill flops or continues to struggle with health. Otherwise, I agree with the wide open aspect of it. Uribe is that classic flamethrower. I understand why people went after him. Again, I went after him myself. I don't think you need to make any moves for Yoho right now, but just know who he is. I just wanted to bring him up because he has some buzz, and I wanted people to know who he is in case things go south in the Milwaukee bullpen. All right, let's talk some panic hitters right now. Now, I have 2 groups. I got the not cutting, but are we worried? And maybe you pivot and say, no, I am cutting here. But my guess is that we're generally not cutting these guys, especially in our 15s, but probably in our 10s and 12s as well, because you and I tend to lean toward patient. What's that?
There is one guy in this first list that I am okay with.
I think I know who it is.
10s and 12s. I'm sure you know who it is because I've been a hater for a while.
Yeah. And then the next group is the could/should these be shallow league cuts because they're not performing well. And the fact is, you got to stick and move in those shallower leagues, and these guys could be on the chopping block here soon. So let's start with the guys that we're probably not cutting anywhere except for the one guy that you're going to bring up, Yainer Diaz, who is part of a disastrous offense for you right now and part of a kind of disastrous offense in Houston. Like they're pretty successful. Actually, they're 500, which is actually pretty successful for how bad their offense has been. I'll stick with that phrase of pretty successful because as bad as their offense has been, I wouldn't be surprised if they were off to last year's start, but they've been treading water. Diaz has a 16 WRC plus. Everything is going poorly for him right now. The strikeouts are up. That's actually supposed to be a big part of his game, is that he doesn't strike out. He's at 23%, which on its face is a decent strikeout rate. But for somebody like him, who's in the 17, 18% range, it's a big deal, especially when you never walk. And then a 180 BABIP is doing the big, big lift here in terms of holding down his numbers. Is it as simple as the BABIP's going to regress and Yainer Diaz is going to be fine? Or do you see any reasons here to be concerned with catcher Yainer Diaz?
I definitely think the BABIP will kind of progress.
Yeah, I know it's always that weirdness of saying regress to the mean, even though you mean improve.
But I don't think that is the only issue here. On the good side of things, he's at a 90% zone contact. That's fantastic. So when he is swinging inside the zone, and he does swing inside the zone a hell of a lot, 78% or almost 79%, he makes a lot of contact. So I do think that the batting average will just inherently come up because of that. He makes too much contact to be hitting below 200.
Right.
I will say there has clearly been an attack change by pitchers on Yainer Diaz that is probably a main reason for these struggles. And if he does not adjust to that, then there are going to be problems. And the problem is last year and the year before, he was pitchers threw in the zone 47% of the time. This year, it's under 42%.
Wow.
Remember how we talked about zone percentage being such a small movement can mean big things. Pitchers are not going into the zone because he swings outside of the zone so much, right?
Right. They're getting him to chase.
So this is very much like a Michael Harris type hitting profile, where like Michael Harris is a good in zone hitter and a bad out of he will chase outside of the zone. And this is what can happen. You can go through these stretches where if you are not going to spit on stuff outside of the zone, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what is happening right now for Yainer Diaz. He needs to learn to lay off of stuff outside of the zone. Otherwise, why would pitchers go inside, or go into the zone, right? Why are pitchers going to even care? They're just going to keep throwing stuff outside because they're going to chase. So there needs to be an approach change for him. And that is the question, because this worked. This worked for him last year where, he swings all the time, including outside of the zone, but he makes such good contact, especially inside the zone, that he can overcome it. Now pitchers have gotten wise to it and are saying hey, I'm not going to go in the zone to you. I need to see you take a walk. If he does not figure this out, this could be a real problem. I'm not cutting him or anything like that, but it is something I really need to see from Yainer Diaz is, can he stay off the stuff outside of the zone?
I know you just said you're not cutting, but I'm going to narrow the question. Any 10-team single catcher situations where maybe you're cutting for Yainer Diaz?
I don't think so, but there probably is somebody out on the wire where I go, you know what? I might just.
I don't want to cut him either. I want to stick with Yainer Diaz. A guy like this is going to start piling up the multi-hit games and flip that average, in short order. That's what I think. That's my bet. But you're taking
this is also why right now. This is also why I do not invest in catchers. We say this every year during the catcher episode, right? Do not invest in catchers in one-team catcher leagues.
One catcher leagues. Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's a 15-team catcher league, because you look at the player rater right now, who do you think is the number 2 catcher in fantasy right now?
It's gotta be somebody that's I'm gonna say Joey Bart. It's not him, but I'm guessing somebody
it's someone even worse.
Shocking.
It's Carson Kelly.
Hey, how dare you say he's worse? He's been amazing for me. I picked him up in a league, and he's been unbelievable, dude.
Austin Wins is the number 10 catcher.
Yep. Jonah Heim back in the mix at 12.
Tyler Heineman is 13. This is ridiculous.
What the hell?
Don't invest. You should take the last catcher on the board, especially in a 10-team or a 12-team one catcher league. And if they're not working out, you rotate to the next guy, because there's always these guys that have hot stretches at catcher, and then you just dump them for the next guy when they cool down. So
this is in one catcher formats. I completely agree. You're just not going to catch me paying paying for big catchers up there. I might get the high end, like the tippy top, but if I can't get that, I'm not paying for that middle range there. Yeah. So yeah, with Yainer Diaz, we're both really trying to hold here. I think that is the right move to kind of see this through for another few weeks for sure. Marcus Semien, we talked a lot about him coming into the year, and not everyone likes him quite as much as we do. He has a 17 WRC plus. Now, this isn't just this year in isolation, because I think if it were, I don't even think I would have put him on the list, if I'm being honest. But we had the same exact combo last year for a good part of the first half of the year. He ended up getting up to 23 homers and a 99 WRC plus. So he was fine. He accumulated the way we expect and hope. But where are we at now? He's 34. He's coming off of his worst season in 5 years and looking terrible right now. Is it a simple 159 BABIP for Marcus Semien the way it was for Yainer Diaz? Or is there something with it that has you concerned that there could be more here and that maybe we need to start looking at benching him or something like that? I'll answer right away and say, I'm not moving, but it's ugly right now. Where we at on Marcus Semien, our boy?
I don't really see a lot in the profile that says there's something wrong here. 90%
BABIP, right?
90% zone contact. He was at 89.6 last year. 10% swing strike rate. He was at 9.5 last year. 26.5 O swing. He was at 26.6 last year. It's not even like the barrel rate's actually up this year. Like the only things that are really that different is he's hitting a few more ground balls and less line drives. And he is got a 3% homer to fly ball rate right now.
And the Ks are up a little bit.
Yeah, but the Ks, his swing strike rate's barely up. It's
right.
I don't think that this is real. I think this is very BABIP influenced. I don't think that I'm not.
Would you go buy here?
Yes, I would absolutely. And you know what? I will put him on my buy low list this week.
Because he is going to be cheaper. I think Marcus Semien, unless the person that has him in your league is me or Justin, and we're not in too many trade leagues, stands of Semien, unless you're running into that, I think you are going to get a real discount. If someone's saying man, I took the shot, I wanted to see if he's fine, and he's cooked. And I don't think he's cooked. I think it's way too early to say that. So yeah, I think I would actually be buying on Marcus Semien right now. And I got to see this through before I'm even going to bench him. I got to see another 4 weeks at least. That's just where I'm at. Okay, cool. Let's talk Triston Casas. 22 on his WRC plus. That is the driving force here of this list, is the WRC pluses, and then we expand out from there because it's a good catch-all number that you can't really be having a 22 and then still faking a good fantasy season. And as is the case here with Casas, 1 homer, 4 ribbies, 3 runs. It's been dreadful. But again, not to just make this a full BABIP episode, he's got a 200. So how much of that is dragging everything down? The power isn't there. It's an 079 ISO. Is this just one of those things, though, where, a 4 homer week and a handful of multi-hit games and all of a sudden Casas is where he needs to be? Or do we have some concerns with what's going on with Triston Casas and his 22 WRC plus?
Yeah, I've got some concerns. But again, this is the guy we were kind of referencing earlier that I would drop in shallower formats. I've always had concerns on Casas. I don't think Casas knows who he is. It's really interesting. Casas is a very patient hitter. Typically, he's not being patient this year. He's swinging way more. The swing percentage for his career is 44%. This year, it is up to 51%.
Walk rate in half. 14% career, 7% this year. Go ahead. Sorry.
And he's not making good contact in the zone. It's just below 80%, which is that threshold where I go, are you a major league hitter? Right. And the thing is, last year it was below that threshold too. And no one seemed to care for some reason at draft day. I think people were just like, well, he had 13 home runs and 212 plate appearances. Just triple that. No, you got a 40 home run hitter. No, that's not how this works.
Yes, it is. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Now we're going to talk about another guy in the next section. Actually, two guys, I think, in the next section who are very much the same guy as Triston Casas. And I am going to say the same thing for them that I'm saying for him. I think he is cuttable. That being said, you are going to cut him and he is going to hit 5 home runs the next week.
Right.
Because that's who Triston Casas is he's going to be maddening to know when the hot streaks are or when the cold streaks are. And if you cut him now, you are going to kick yourself when he hits 5 home runs next week. And then you are going to expend a bunch of money on Fab to go pick him up, or he'll be on someone else's team. And then he will go cold again because that is who Triston Casas is. So when we get to Max Muncy and Jake Berger, I'm going to have the exact same analysis.
Yeah. But, Casas was a bit more expensive than either of those guys. Actually, I will check the prices there when we get to the other two. And so, it is a little bit tougher to cut, but usually he gets to where he needs to be. 129 and 121 on the 130 and 119 on the WRC pluses the last 2 years. But man,
I will argue he doesn't get where he needs to be because he's never played enough plate appearances in a full season to do that. Right.
Well, I'm talking about the production, not the volume. 502 and 243. I mean, he got
the volume is the production we care about.
Well, obviously, but if you can tell me when everyone's going to get hurt, then share your crystal ball. You can't. We have been over this. You absolutely can't.
Spencer Strider already on the IL.
You're just scared. Oh, did you know he was going to get hurt playing catch? Oh, you were on that? God. Dave's influencing you. All right. Dylan Cruz, talked about him. Someone cut him in the main event. I do not agree with that at all. I just,
I know he was struggling big time, but that is insane.
It's just a bad decision. I'm sorry. Like, it's a process thing so that even if things end up not good by the end of the year, that was still a bad move when you did it to cut Dylan Cruz. And by the fact that 2 people bid over 400, I think kind of co-signs that, right? 2 teams said, whoa, Dylan Cruz, I'm going to take a shot on this. What's particularly interesting about that is they cut him the day after he finally had an explosive game. Now, it was in Colorado, but who gives a shit? Those numbers count the exact same. He went 3 for 5 with 4 runs, 2 homers, 4 ribbies.
No, they must have cut him the week before.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, which is even dumber, by the way. Yes. You cut him with a Coors week on tap.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, he got hits in all 3 of the Coors games. In fact, he has a 6-game hit streak coming into today, does Dylan Cruz. So yeah, that was just mind-numbingly stupid. I'm sorry. I don't usually go full name calling on somebody's decision there, but what were you doing there?
And during this hit streak that he has going currently, he has a 184 WRC plus. He's hitting 348, 375, 652. Don't cut guys like Dylan.
So he's already coming out of it. By the way, his composite for Dylan Cruz is a 41. So that tells you how bad it was before this run. But I think the fact that we're already talking about his hot streak, where it's been 2 homers, 6 steals on the year, I think it's very clear that we feel pretty good about him coming out of this, right? I mean, where were you on Cruz coming into the year? Were you medium on him? I feel like you weren't huge on him.
For the price.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. Sorry.
Okay.
I lost you right when I asked you about Dylan Cruz's price.
I'll just, I was kind of caught in between Cruz in terms of versus price where I thought he should be. I really liked it. And I felt like, hey, between Cruz and his teammate James Wood, if one of these players is going to flop, I felt like it was going to be James Wood because Cruz has just got the better overall hit tool. And so it was really kind of discouraging to be like, oh my God, like he's really struggling. And they pretty much started him batting at the bottom of the order during the start of the season, which didn't make a ton of sense to me either way. So that being said, like, I think he's going to be fine. You look at what he's doing over the course of this last week and you go, okay, he's starting to figure it out. The contact is above 90%. He's, hitting the ball hard. Yes, it's he was up against Pittsburgh and then had a Colorado series. Fine, you need to do damage against bad teams.
Yeah, that's exactly where you get right.
Yeah, so I have zero concern about Cruz. If he was dropped in your league, hopefully you already picked him up, but go grab him. Just it's insane to me that somebody in a main event dropped Dylan Cruz.
Yeah, I just what are you doing? I'm sorry, but what are you doing? Because I don't think that that's a guy that you just take. You had to have some interest in Dylan Cruz to go for him because he wasn't cheap. He was in a zone where it's I understood if people liked him, which I think is kind of where you were, where you thought he's good enough, but you had other guys you liked in that zone. So you weren't paying the 112 ADP that he cost in the main event, but you're okay, I see why people go for him, et cetera, et cetera. If you took that gamble, how the hell are you cutting? Anyway, I don't want to belabor that point too much. That is mind numbing to me. So we're full back in. If he's cut anywhere, go get Dylan Cruz. We're not even worried. Max Muncy. Now he is another one of these guys that can go looking like a AA player in the majors, bad to Hall of Fame good. When he's dialed in and he's hitting 4 homers per week for a couple weeks in a row, and it looks like he's just never gonna stop hitting, you're oh my God, this guy's amazing. And then there's other times where he looks ice cold. We know batting average is never going to be a big thing for him, but 191 is a bit excessive to the negative here. Things aren't going well for Muncy, but it's a relatively cheap piece. He was picked 267 into the Dodgers lineup. I feel like he's the perfect roto player where you just got to catch up at the end of the year and see where things are at. I'm not buckling here. By the way, what am I looking at here? I put 42. Oh, it's the wrong Max Muncy. It's not the Dodgers one. I did it. I'm why do these numbers not agree? Now, Dodgers Max Muncy hasn't been very good, but this is the A's one with a 42, which means he doesn't need to be on this list.
Max Muncy has a 65 WRC.
Yes.
He's going to be fun. He's going to be fun. This is, again,
I wouldn't even put him on this list.
Yeah, same thing as, well, you put him on the list last second. This is why you got it wrong, right? Because we were talking about my main event team that has the guys on this list, right?
Let's do this guy instead that I'm adding right now. Mm-hmm. Luis Robert Jr. has a 52. I cannot believe I made that. I didn't even think about looking either. I was oh, that's Max Muncy. This has to be the big power hitter. Anyway, Luis Robert Jr. has a 52. Now, he came in still at a pretty high cost, but I think anybody that took him was holding their nose oh, I guess, dude, because he still had a top 100 pick price. In fact, he was 90 in the main event on average with a min of 45. Holy crap, who took him at 45? And a max of 119. He's on a dreadful team. I'm of the mind that they're going to get better as the year goes on, as they add pieces, although he could be one of the pieces that goes away to add more minor leaguers. Are you in on buying low on Robert at all?
No.
He at least has 7 steals.
Yeah, I was about to say, at least you're getting 7 stolen bases. I think he's been broken for a while. I think the injuries that Robert has had has really just contributed to him not being as good of a hitter as he was earlier on in his career. You look at the in zone contact rates, and they have just nosedived from where they were in 21-22. Now in 2023, he had an amazing season. But we talk about these guys who struggle to make contact in the zone, but overcome it because they have lightning fast hands.
Yeah, because he's one of those guys, right? He's never been an in-zone stud.
No, well, he was league average in 21 and 22.
Okay, that's better than I would have thought.
It was 2023 where things started to you started to go, hey, what's going on here? And I don't think people noticed because he hit 38 home runs.
Right, he had a huge breakout year.
But he also, that's when his strikeout rate jumped from 20% to 30%. And
with a 5% walk rate too.
Yeah. And I think now you add in the fact he's out all these injuries, maybe he's starting to slow down a little bit, which sucks because he's 27 years old and this should be his magic season, right?
Yeah. But he should be in his prime in these the last year, and now so far this year they're looking like total duds, and that's a bummer for a guy as electric as Robert.
And maybe this is a matter of hey, he just hates being where he is. I
True.
I could totally understand that, right? And we have seen certain guys who just cannot stand where they're at because the team around them is so bad. And this is probably one of the most egregious examples of a play. So you're literally coming off of the worst team in MLB history last year. And he's got to look around and be like, well, I guess Andrew Vaughn's okay. But then there's nobody else. Like there's absolutely nobody else. Yeah,
him, Benny, and Vaughn. Right. Robert, Benny, and Vaughn are like the only three capable guys right now. And again, I'm going to keep beating this drum. They're going to add minor leaguers, their prospects. Yes. They're going to be a better team as the year goes.
I do like the direction that they're going.
But it's going to take time.
But he will not be part of the next great White Sox
team.
And he probably knows that. That being said, I would not try to buy low on him.
Okay.
I don't like these underlying skills at all. And like even he is getting unlucky. There is
178 BABIP.
178 BABIP, absolutely. But that accumulates to a 233 XBA, which is still not good.
Right.
Like that's
nobody wants that either.
So I'm not a big fan of Robert. I stayed away from him in draft season. I do think that there's going to be speed. I think he will hit some home runs, but I don't think that this is going to be like, hey, first round Luis Robert again. No, we're not getting back to those days unless something really changes about his hit tool.
Yeah, if he goes to a new team, they unlock something, it's a better environment, and we get Luis Robert back, that'd be great. But right now it's very bleak. But you have to hold, right? You have to hold and keep playing. I mean, maybe in a 10, you don't have to keep playing, but I still don't think you should cut.
I don't think, depending on your roster, I don't think you have to keep playing any of these guys right now, but I do think you hold them, right? So, for instance, I love Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien's on my bench in one of my big money auction leagues. Now, that has
been terrible.
Yeah, and that's partly because like I have really, really good options, right? I picked up, Perdomo, who's been hot, and my MIs, Matt McClain, who's fantastic. Like, so I'm not like hurting and putting in a scrub or anything, but you should be playing your best players. And right now, these guys can be considered not your best players. I think they will be your better players by the end of the season. So you're going to want to hold on to them to see when they turn it around. But you shouldn't feel like, well, I drafted this guy in the 7th round, I need to play him. No, not if he's struggling the way he is.
I make those sorts of points for hold versus cut. I drafted a player in X round. I should hold him, but not necessarily for start sit. I do agree there that you can bench a guy. Now, you run the risk of them having a hot week on your bench, but that's better than just cutting them. All right, let's go to the could, should be shall league cuts here, because I don't think these guys have to be held. And this is exactly the player class that burns me in these 10s and 12s, where I want to hold them too long instead of sticking and moving to the next guy and maybe revisiting them. And that's the thing you always have to remember is like, just because you're cutting somebody doesn't mean they can't be on your team again. If they come back to what you thought they could be, maybe you're the one that picks them back up, especially in a waiver league where you don't have to fab every time. Maybe you're just staying on keeping tabs on Michael Toglia, our first guy here, and you see that they have a big 7-game Coors week coming up. You pick him back up or something. But right now he looks terrible. He has a 14 WRC plus, and even acknowledging, which is my opinion, that Rockies guys are a little bit burned on the plus numbers. I think they hit them too hard for Coors. You cannot mask a 14. There's nothing that makes a 14 palatable.
Hold on. This is some of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Okay. What do you think Michael Toglia's WRC plus is on the road?
6.
-14. He's hitting 281 at home.
So he's actually been fine at home doing whatever limited damage Toglia has done. It's all.
I mean, he's got a 51 WRC plus at home, so it's not like he's been good.
Right, but relative.
What do you think his strikeout rate on the road is?
I'm going to say like 67%. Like
it's 61%.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Like he is just your traditional Rockies guy.
Yep.
He is going to mash at home and be terrible on the road.
Like that's impossible.
It is. I'm looking at these splits right now, and it is unreal. He has a 122 OBP on the road.
Jeez.
Like, it's I mean, look at the BABIP difference. 391 BABIP at home, 214 BABIP on the road. This is what you get with Rockies, guys.
So, with Toglia, then, where are we at?
I think if you can afford to, I think if you can afford to just play him at home, you play him at home and you don't play him on the road. Ryan McMahon-ish, right? Like,
so it's a 10-team cut, right? For sure.
I think so.
Probably already should have been cut.
He's probably a 10-team stream, right? Like, you stream him when he's on the road, you drop him, or you stream when he's at home, you drop him when he's on the road. Here's
the tough part. We don't have a big Colorado week coming up anytime soon. They get 3 early next week and then 4 to the Giants. So that's going to a terrible park against a good pitching team. You get Verlander, Ray, Hicks, and Webb.
In a daily moves league, you drop him after that.
Yeah.
You got to make the decision in a weekly league.
Now, if it is a daily moves league, you are getting 6 in a row. You get 3 this weekend against Cincy and then 3 to open next week against Atlanta. So you got 6 there with Toglia before the cut. But yeah, I think it's a home only stream. Classic.
I also want to point out too, like, Rockies guys are much better at home, but they also can struggle early on in the season when the weather is still, really
terrible,
cold, right? So, I mean, we saw snow on opening day, the Rockies opening day. So,
what about 15s with Toglia?
I think it really depends what you're dropping them for, but I don't think you can drop them. Like,
what if he's your only cut for Kurtz?
That I would do. Like, that is something I'm doing. But like, if I'm just going to go to my main event right now and look.
Okay.
Like, would you drop him for Miguel Vargas, who's hitting 139?
No, I would want, and I love Vargas. You know this. I have a weird, I can't quit that guy, but I prefer Toglia.
Eric Wagaman.
That's a fake player. You have to say real, bro. Say real player.
No, he's a real player who's
say real players, dude. Don't try to trick me with a U.S. representative.
I wrote about him last night on the Roto Write-Up. Actually, I've had Wagaman on my 30-team 100-man roster dynasty league because I'm the Angels in that league, and we get first access to like the draft picks that nobody drafts during the draft.
He was an Angel, wasn't he?
He was an Angel. That's also I have him. Like, he's literally my third baseman in that league right now. And he's been really good.
I was going to say, jokes aside, he's high-key been playing very well.
Yeah, and I think he actually is a decent bat. I don't know that I'm dropping Toglia for him, but
no, I think I'd still stick with Toglia there because I want the Colorado, but that one's closer. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean now it's a drop off. You got Jose,
and that's why you're not cutting Toglia.
Sosa, Ernie Clement, Rowdy Tellez, none of these guys you're dropping.
I'd rather hold. Kurtz is about the only one I'd make that big move for, and that's obviously an extenuating circumstance.
Now this guy's been awful too, but he does lead off sometimes. Lamont Wade Jr.
Ooh, late night Lamont. Now you're a Giants fan. Can I throw it right back at you and say what's going on? Do we think he's going to get out of his slump?
I dropped him in this main event.
So then you wouldn't even do that then.
No,
I think not. I'm concerned because yes, his OBP is even now it's a 130-point split, which on its face is great, but it only gets him up to 232 because he's hitting 103.
And part of the problem is he platoons. So like
right.
Like you don't.
So the impact is lighter.
Yeah, like at least you can't accumulate the same way like Toglia is going to accumulate because he plays every day. So
I think I prefer Toglia still. So the bottom line is we have not found a way to cut him in a 15. There's just not enough talent out there. I think you ride this out. You can easily bench him. There's no problem with that. But the beauty of the NFBC is you can get those half weeks. So you can get him in this weekend against Cincy, keep him in for the first half of the week against Atlanta, and then bench him for the San Francisco start. He's better than this, but he is very, very streaky because he strikes out a ton. He's not a huge walks guy, and he just doesn't seem to make enough consistent contact. Let's go from one Michael to another, from Michael Toglia to Michael Massey. Now, people were getting in on the rebuy this year. I was somebody who was doing that too. I liked him a lot last year. This year, I was saying, I'm going to stick with him. The price was fair. I didn't think it was egregious. It was kind of a boringly solid season last year for deeper leagues. He only played 100 games, but he hit 14 homers with a 259. That's fine. He's down to a 26 WRC plus this year, hasn't hit a homer. This offense as a whole has been really bad, by the way. They were one of the teams that was supposed to stick around and continue to compete. The Guardians, Royals, Tigers, and Twins were supposed to be a 4-team competition there. The Royals look freaking terrible on offense so far. Is Michael Massey somebody that you're sticking with in your mid and shallower formats right now?
I'm sorry, I'm over here laughing because while you were talking, I just had the thought. I was like, I wonder that dude who dropped Dylan Cruz. I wonder who he picked up for Dylan Cruz. Like who? No, it wasn't Massey. It's way worse. It is because like everybody has those ones where you go, oh, I picked up or I dropped this guy, he went off, and then I picked up this guy who was terrible. We all have these stories.
Of course.
He picked up Ryan Feltner, who had a 16.87 ERA and a 4.12 whip this last week.
And I love Feltner, but like it's always been non-fantasy love. Like I love him, but I never really tried to take the plunge in fantasy because Coors is undefeated and I just don't want to mess with it. Yeah. To cut Dylan Cruz for him
and start him against the Dodgers.
That is terrible. Is he in a tanking league where you're trying to be the worst possible?
I don't know.
That's really terrible. All right, back to Massey though. 20% K, that's up 4 points from last year. 3% walk, that's down a tick from 4%, which is already bad. The 26 WRC plus, 246 BABIP. 246 BABIP is low, but it's not like so egregiously low that it's going to be this big surge. He had a 271 last year. He's a 270 career. Is Massey somebody you really need to hold? Even in 15s, I think that's a fair. Well, except for the fact that who are you going to replace, which you did the exercise last time with Toglia. But what about 10s and 12s?
That becomes the difficult part is who do you replace? Actually, I think there are more middle infield options than there are corner options. So maybe
hit me with some names when you can.
Edward Julian.
I think Julian.
Thomas Sagasi. He's hitting 400 right now.
I might go Sagasi. I think they're kind of similar composite players. So give me the guy who's playing better right now on a much better offense too, by the way. Now he doesn't play every day, but I think I'll go Sagasi.
Nick Allen, who's got 4 stolen bases.
Yeah, and he is playing a good bit. Orlando Arcia has been unseated there in Atlanta. I think I'll stick with Massey.
Yeah,
because
I think I stick with Massey too, but
Allen's got he's just a glove. He's a glove with some speed.
What about Brooks Baldwin, who has 2 home runs and 2 stolen bases for the
White Sox?
254.
That one is actually a bit of a toss-up. Yeah.
Plus you get the outfield eligibility.
Yeah. I think Baldwin. So I think there are some universes where I would cut Massey in 15s. Now 10s and 12s, I think it's easy, right? It's a slam dunk cut at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing. I don't even know if I'd cut Massey for any of those guys. Like the underlying numbers are kind of fine. Like
for Massey, okay, give us the readout here.
He's a little bit above league average zone contact. Swinging strike rate is 8%.
Okay.
The home run to fly ball is at 0. Like it's just 0% because
that will get better.
Yeah, that'll get better. I think maybe he's putting the ball a little bit too much in the air.
Okay.
So his launch angle right now is 20.4. So he's trying to
lift his way out of it. Yeah.
And you can't do that in that park. We talk about this all the time. Like Kansas City is bad for home runs. It's good for everything else.
Literally everything
line drives in that park. And what we're seeing is he is definitely trying to lift the ball a little bit too much and pull it. He's 51% pull percentage right now.
Save that for when you visit Tampa Bay.
I do think that this is a correctable problem.
Okay.
I do think that Massey is a better hitter than this, and that he will ultimately be okay. I don't think we're going to see like a Michael Massey breakout by any stretch of the imagination, like I thought we might get last year.
Right.
But I think he's going to play every day, at least for, looking at the rest of the team, like
he's still playing every day right now, right?
Yeah,
they're not benching him.
He sat versus a lefty this last week, but it was also Sunday, so that may just been a matter of, hey, we're giving you a day off. So
right.
I think he's going to be fine. I like I said, I don't think he's going to be a breakout by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he'll be a fine accumulator type dude.
By the way, I had no idea that they were actually going to Tampa Bay next week. I just said that because that's a great park to hit homers. But yeah, next week you can get your pull fly ball happy swing going in Tampa Bay, and that can serve you well. Now, the reason I might still take Baldwin over Massey is just because even a fixed Massey is not that huge of a fantasy asset. So it's Baldwin really with some pop and some speed, I still might take him, but maybe the other guys there, maybe not. But yeah, in 10s, I don't even know if he was rostered, so that's probably an easy cut. But in 12s, where Massey was definitely drafted, I think you could probably move on if you want, because there should be some talent on the wire. What about Alec Bohm? He's got just a 35 WRC plus right now. He's on the Phillies, of course. Being part of a great team is nice, but he's now moved down the order. He's batting 8th primarily right now. No homers, a steal, 6 ribbies, 9 runs, 198 average with a 243 BABIP. What's up with Alec Bohm? I mean, again, not somebody who's like a fantasy stud even at their best, but usually a pretty capable guy with good batting average, a little bit of pop, sprinkle of speed, and nothing's there right now.
This is bad luck.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. I think 243 BABIP. His XBA right now is 262. If he was hitting 262, we wouldn't be.
Wouldn't be on the list.
Yeah. I think he's actually got the highest barrel percentage of his career if you don't count the shortened 2020 season. He's hitting the ball hard. It's actually his highest hard hit percentage of his career. His X slug is 399. Like, I think he's going to be fine. I think this is a perfect buy low opportunity.
All right, Alec Bohm, we're buying low in our shower, or in our deeper leagues, I should say, because he should come back. And again, being part of a good team, even batting low when you're going well, the runs and ribbies are coming when you're with the Phillies. Now, here's a guy I loved coming into the year, so I definitely want to stick with him in my 15s. It's going to be hard to get me to push off of Joey Ortiz, but so far so bad. 35 WRC plus, same as Bohmer there. No homers, 4 ribs, 8 runs, 2 steals, 212 BABIP. He's also, it's basically everything is the same with Bohm except the lack of a track record. And I don't know where he is on the luckometer there. You said that Bohm was just some bad luck that should turn. What about Joey Ortiz? Should he have some brightness in his future?
It should be brighter.
Okay.
I don't know how bright. So Ortiz is one of these guys who makes a lot of contact. So I tend to like them, right? He is, even now during these struggles, he is at a 90.5% zone contact. Swing strike rate is 7%. Like, you like that contact ability. The problem is he falls into this bucket of guys like his teammate Sal Frelick, who, hey, he make a lot of contacts, but doesn't go very far.
Right.
Like, that's been the major problem for Ortiz, because he is making a lot of contact. He is putting the ball in play, but it's just not going anywhere. His hard hit percentage is at 31%.
Woof.
And so this, yes, he's getting unlucky. He should not have a 177 batting average, but his XBA is 217. That's not good either.
No.
And I think part of the problem is he isn't like a big line drive hitter. He's a big ground ball guy. And so a lot of it is going to depend on the BABIP luck that he gets, because he doesn't elevate it enough to get it into the outfield. I think he's going to be better, and I don't think you should drop him. But in a 15-teamer, in a 10 and 12, yeah, I think you should drop him. I think you should move on right now.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I say this again as somebody who came into the season very big on Joey Ortiz. I think he can be an accumulator breakout type, like a volume breakout type, where he's like a 15-15 with like a 250, 260 average. It's not super special. That's why it's a 15-team type of guy. I'm sticking with him there, but in the shower leagues where you took the shot, this is the guy you got to move on from. Yeah. Because he might come around, try to get back in on the resurge. Don't hold this out. This is the exact player that in a 12 in previous years that I would hold way too long. And so, even though I don't play 12s as much anymore, my mindset is better about knowing not to hold those guys. So yeah, I think Joey Ortiz gots to go. What about your boy, Jake Burger, you already referenced him earlier that we would be getting to him. This was somebody you loved coming into the year, and I joined you. I'm not sloughing this off on you or anything, but I know Jake Burger was big for you. I was right there. This is the exact kind of roto guy that we're talking about, though. When I mistakenly had up Max Muncy on there, and I was like, just talk to me on October 1st. That's kind of how I feel about Burger. Like, I think he's going to get his. But is there any reasons for concern? And is he a shallower league cut where taking zeros or near zeros, bad numbers here, is a problem? 46 WRC plus, 2 homers, 8 ribs. What's up with Burger? Is he overcooked?
Yeah. So someone asked me if he was well done, and
that's funny.
In my chat yesterday. No, this is who Jake Burger is. We had this exact same conversation about Jake Burger around this time last year.
I believe it. Yep. And he ended up
literally
being fine. 29-76 for his homer and ribbies.
I wonder if I can find it by just scrolling through his.
I bet you can, because Texas had a malaise. Remember, we talked about their World Series hangover.
He wasn't on Texas last year.
Oh, that's right. I'm an idiot. So he would have been with Miami.
So we on 6-6 sputtering would-be studs. We talked about Jake Burger and whether or not we should cut him. And I said exactly what I'm going to say now.
That's right. I remember this.
If you cut him, he's going to go and hit, 15, 20 home runs rest away on somebody else's team. And what did Jake Burger go and do?
Even more than that, I bet.
Yeah, Jake Burger had 29 home runs on the season. I could probably look up exactly when.
I got it for you right now. I'm in the game log. From 6-6 on, Jake Burger ripped 25 homers with a 260 average.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I actually said he could hit 25 homers.
I'm not budging on Burger. Now, again, maybe a bench for a spot here and there. But even that I don't want to do, because he's going to hit a 3-homer game.
In honor of the NFL draft, you know what I'm going to say?
What?
He is who we thought he was. And let him off the hook. This is who Jake Burger is.
Yes.
We talk about this all the time. This is why you don't draft these guys in head-to-head leagues, right? Those of you who, you and I don't really play head-to-head very much, but this is why you don't draft these guys in head-to-head leagues.
And don't draft them if you don't have the stomach.
Exactly. If you can't stomach the burger, don't eat the burger.
Exactly. Sorry, I was taking a drink there.
I know.
But yeah, if you can't tolerate these sorts of ups and downs, and again, I'm not saying that as a dig at anybody. Draft to your strengths as a manager. And if seeing 179 with a 30% K rate on April 22nd has you bugging, then you shouldn't take a guy like that.
If you are a quick trigger kind of player, right?
Yep.
If you're the type of player that goes, got to cut this guy, got to move on to the next guy, then don't draft. Don't draft Casas. Don't draft Muncy. Don't draft Jake Burger. Don't draft
these power only guys.
Or not even the power only guys, but the guys who don't make a crap ton of contact.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That O'Neal Cruz is another really good example of this. Right?
Yep.
He had that really fast start to the season, and then he went ice cold. And there were people who were like, O'Neal Cruz has dropped in my 10-team league. Do I pick him up? Yeah, if you can handle the ups, you're of course, yeah. I wasn't big on O'Neal Cruz, but you pick him up. If you need to know what kind of player you are,
right?
And I think a lot of people, and this is the hard part about giving fantasy advice, right? And because a lot of people will listen to podcasts, read articles, and you see, oh, this is the guy I want to draft. This guy is on all my teams. Are you the same type of fantasy player as the guy you're listening to?
Right. Exactly. And that's why we always stress the type of players that we are. To say what we have, that's why we're paid for saves. You might love reading Reliever Recon every day, which you should do whether you want to pay for saves or not. But you might be somebody that loves looking for the next Craig Yoho because you think he's going to get 6 saves, and it's worth scrounging for that. Others don't want to deal with that headache at all. So yeah, I think that's a huge point. Know your strengths and draft to them. And this Burger type, this Casas type, is not for everybody because it is painful to watch him be sucky. But that's why I don't even care. I'll check in with him on Memorial Day. And if he's still hitting my body weight, okay, then maybe we have a conversation. But as Justin pointed out, we talked about Burger on 6-6 last year, and we still had confidence in him, and he ripped 25 homers the rest of the year. So yeah, you really have to understand the player types that you're drafting and how they work with your management style and try to prevent your own mistakes by not drafting guys that you know you won't give the proper time to. All right, I think that's going to wrap us up there. I'm still laughing at that Max Muncy flub that I made. I didn't even think to look for the other Max Muncy there. By the way, the reason we didn't end up continuing to talk about him is because he's a rookie. He would not be on the not cutting, but are we worried list, because he's barely rostered anywhere, that Max Muncy. And the other Max Muncy we're fine with. All right, we will be back, I believe, on Thursday with Mr. Joseph Arrico. Yep. And we'll be talking about something. By the way, our friend Eric Samolsky gave us an interesting idea to look into. I'm researching some data on that to talk about either this week or next. Maybe I'll wait a week just to see what happens this week, because you talked about the way Fab's going. It's Fab related. We might want this week to come in to kind of see where those bids are before we explore that topic, because Fab bids it's been an interesting landscape this year. But anyway, Justin, I hope you're doing well, and we will talk in a couple days. Take care.
Take it easy.